Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm JR. That's Chris. We're bringing you another head coaching update, search update for the Penn State job as things are once again heating up. I mean, at this point, I feel like Chris and I could do a show every single day on this stuff because every single time after we get done, Chris and I are texting the next day about, well, this just happened, that just happened. But we're coming to you again here Thursday morning, and we'll probably come to you again on Thursdays just until this hire is made. So, Chris, a lot to get to on this. Bob Chesney heating up a little bit. Kalen DeBoer heating up a little bit. I'm sure there's a few other names we'll talk about, but where in your mind do we need to start based off our previous conversations?
Well, we'll start. I just want to say this right out of the gate. This has been the craziest coaching search I think I've ever seen. Not that I pay attention to a lot of them, because if it's not my team, I don't care. But this thing had so many twists and turns, just week to week. And I mean, that's how a coaching search goes. But I've been pretty on top of it. Coaching searches, you have coaches they target and they get an answer. They don't. Some coaches drop off. Other coaches add on. Some stick around for a while. Where we are at now, I do think we are down to. So I guess last week we're talking about Bob Chesney and Kalen DeBoer a little bit. I do think at this point, Eli Drinkowitz and Brent Key are out of it. I do feel safe to say that. And I basically think this is down to Bob Chesney, Kalen DeBoer are this big surprise mystery candidate that everybody that's really, really heated up over the past couple days. So, Eli Drinkowitz, just to touch on him, he didn't, he was always right there, but it seems even with like Florida and LSU, everything I kept hearing, even with Penn State, he was kind of like a tier 2 guy and always like a third, fourth option. I don't know what he did, but he just doesn't seem like he really impresses a lot of people. And I think he just got an extension from Missouri that he's going to be staying in Missouri. Just want to throw that out there. But anyways, so my indicate from everything I've gathered and what I was told, Bob Chesney is right there. I don't know if he's going to be the hire, but I know he was very impressive, reportedly from his interview. PA guy, he doing great JMU. He has recruiting connections in the DMV. James Madison's right there. And I don't know if it's going to be him. He kind of sounds like he might be a plan B guy. I don't know, because the closer this thing got, especially with this quote unquote mystery candidate, it got really hush hush. I mean, the people closest to Pat Kraft's inner circle are really the only ones that know. I will say that Matt McGloin last Saturday's game, was at the game, a buddy of mine, and not with my buddy, but he was, in a tailgate with him. And he told my buddy that they got their coaching cert, their hire. He did not indicate who it was, but Matt McGloin, Board of Trustees, did say that we got our hire. Now, the thing with this coaching search, what it came down to, like in the final stretch, it was Bob Chesney. Kalen DeBoer's name was kept being thrown out. Is he in? Is he out? Is he in? Is he out? A lot of the national guys that talk to the Alabama side say there's no indication Kalen DeBoer's leaving. He seems like everything's okay there. They don't hear anything, any smoke coming out of Alabama. So one of my guys said he was miserable there. And this guy's an NFL scout. He's older guy, a lot of connections, and reports were Kalen DeBoer's miserable. And I don't think they may have, but I don't think they've ever gotten a firm no from Kalen DeBoer yet. So from my understanding it was always Bob Chesney's right there if they don't get Kalen DeBoer, and then there's this big mystery candidate. And I was skeptical of this big mystery candidate because we were told there's going to be smoke screens. Like even insiders reporting it, there could be smoke screens, and it's just, just a lot of posturing. The last 2 days, this mystery candidate, whoever it is, has really, really taken off. Like insiders on the message board seem like they're all like that. They kind of know who it is, and everyone's hinting that we got a whale. Do you want to put the Adam Brenneman tweet up?
Yes.
So for those who haven't
seen,
I'm just going to say, while he brings his tweet up, Adam Brenneman, however many days was it? I think the November 23rd or something. He put this tweet up if you haven't seen. It says and Adam Brenneman, former Penn State player. I know he's still very connected with the program. You know, he does his own podcast, but he's also very connected with the program. I've seen him at NIL events, and you can read it for yourself. There's definitely a big name coach in the mix for Penn State that no one's talking about. Just like he says, think Lincoln Riley to USC a few years ago. So not only is this supposed to be a big name coach, but it's supposed to be kind of like coming out of nowhere. And from what he said there, now, like, he's a pretty credible guy. From what he said there, I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's something to this. And I didn't really want to talk on it a lot because you just don't know how close this is. But the past day or two, it has taken off. Like, basically what Adam Brenneman is saying is basically what's being reported on the message boards and just other insiders and you know, some of my people. They don't know who it is, but all indications are that they got a big whale. You know, Josh Pate, I'm not a big fan of Josh Pate. I think he talks out of both sides of his mouth. But Josh Pate said the other day on a video that he said he thinks he knows who it is. I don't, you know, take that for what it's worth. He should be a well-sourced guy, you would think. He said if you gave a Penn State fan 15 guesses, they probably wouldn't get it. So it's really interesting. And because of all these rumors, I didn't want to, like I said, come out and say, yes, this big, you know, has a lot of traction, but it absolutely has traction. And they wanted to keep the name very, very quiet from what I was told, from my understanding, because they didn't want whatever program this guy's coming from, they didn't want other people to get wind of it and talk him into staying or talk him into not leaving. They didn't want this guy to get cold feet at all. But all indications is this is probably a big whale, that we got some big surprise coach. Now, could that be just a smokescreen and it's Bob Chesney? It could be, but I don't understand why you need a big smokescreen and you know, throw people off the scent if it's Bob Chesney. You know what I mean? I mean, the only other school Bob Chesney's after is UCLA, and he's not picking UCLA over Penn State, especially being a PA guy. So I don't know. Like right now, again, I don't know. That the closer, you know, it was easier to get information with this coaching search the last few weeks, but leading up to this past week, it's gotten very tight. It's gotten very tight-lipped. And supposedly from what was being reported, whoever this mystery guy is, it's just about a done deal. Supposedly the paperwork, from what I was told, they were ironing out the paperwork this week. You know, the legal teams, the contracts, all that stuff, that's been reported. And the only one that really knows is, like, you know, probably Pat Kraft's inner circle and, you know, probably some people like, you know, similar to Adam Brenneman and people that are like direct ties to the program. But this has been very, very tight-lipped. I have a hard time seeing it being Kalen DeBoer because, like, you know, how do you leave? Now, if they got their guy right now, with Kalen DeBoer likely to be in the playoffs if they beat Auburn, how do you leave a playoff team? Like, how do you accept the job to coach another school if you're in a playoff team? I mean, this is so crazy. People are even trying to guess like Marcus Freeman, as crazy as that sounds. But that's where we're at with this. Like, it's to me, it's either Bob Chesney, Kalen DeBoer, or a mystery candidate. But Adam Brenneman's tweet's pretty interesting.
Now, Nick Saban did come out and say that Brian Daboll should get the job at Penn State. We're ruling out Brian Daboll completely,
that's
correct?
Not happening. That's not happening. And there's some idiot on Twitter who goes by the name of Sekra, who actually Sekrah, that acts like an insider, acts like he knows anything. And don't listen to that guy, because for some reason he gets a lot of attention. He stirs the pot. You know, if I don't know something, I'm just going to come out and straight up tell you I don't know, or just report what I've heard, what I'm hearing. But anyways, there's just, like I said, a lot of smoke screens, a lot of crazy stuff out there. I've never seen a coaching search with so many twists and turns, but this is where we're at.
Wouldn't be Sark, correct? He's had some stuff there happen at Texas, and he kind of moves around a little bit, but it wouldn't be Sark, right?
I'm going to be honest with you. I have nothing would surprise me. It could be a guy from the NFL. I don't think it's from the NFL ranks. Nothing would surprise me. The guy that told me about Matt McGloin, my buddy, that was with him at the game, like, I was with him the next day on Sunday, and we were just trying to guess these names, and it just, nothing would surprise me. There's a lot of rumors going around I forget who put it out. It might have been that secret idiot. Or yeah, that secret guy is saying the guy Josh Pate is referring to, his quote unquote mystery candidate, is Sonny Dykes. So then you have some Sonny Dykes rumors, but I mean, Josh Pate said it wouldn't be a good fit. I can't see that happening. I don't why, that's not a good fit, but nothing, literally nothing would surprise me of who this guy is.
All right, well, I'm going to put 5 names out there really fast, just so that way, if it is one of these 5, everybody has to give me credit, okay? So
you got it, man.
Here's my 5 names that I'll put out there really fast. And I'm not saying all these guys are good, but,
right.
These have been thought of as good head coaches. Brian Kelly, Kenny Dillingham, let's go Deion Sanders, Fran Brown, and Mark Stoops.
Killing Brown, Dillingham, and Stoops. So definitely, it's definitely not going to be Brian Kelly.
I was going to say, I thought you might have a reaction to that one.
Yeah, it's not going to be Brian Kelly. Kenny Dillingham, his name came up with people like just trying to guess, figure out who it is. And I think I recall seeing Kenny Dillingham a month ago or so in some kind of interview, press conference, whatever, just flat out say, I'm staying with Arizona State. Like, I'm pretty sure I recall him saying that. Fran Brown, really, like, he was a pretty big name, but he dropped off. I think it's in a stat, like, I don't think it would be Fran Brown. Stoops, I don't know. That's a possibility. Again, nothing would surprise me. Here's something very interesting. Very interesting. From what I was told, Deion Sanders, now this was going way back in the beginning of the search, that Penn State actually was in contact with Deion Sanders. There's a pretty credible insider that not that I know, but from what I read, what he said, that said Penn State he's contacted Deion Sanders. So again, nothing would surprise me. I'm not saying it is him. I really don't know. If I were to guess, and again, this is just a guess, I would say, Bob Chesney's not a mystery candidate, but I would say it could be Bob Chesney. It could be Kalen DeBoer. It could be, even though I think it's crazy and highly unlikely, Marcus Freeman. One name that kind of makes sense is Jedd Fisch, because Jedd Fisch is from New Jersey. He went to Florida, I believe, but he's from New Jersey. I don't think I'd want Jedd Fisch over Chesney or Terry Smith, but so DeBoer, Jedd Fisch, it's just so hard. It's very hard. I don't know. And you know what?
Go ahead.
You know what's funny? When Tom Bradler or Bull Paternal, was fired and they're bringing in a new coach. The same thing, not to this nor near this extent. No hot board had Bill O'Brien. It's a totally different program now, different people running it, like different athletic director. But every single hot board, nobody had Bill O'Brien. And then all of a sudden, Bill O'Brien's the coach. It was Greg Roman. It was, I can't think of his name. The tight end, the coach, I can't think of the guy's name. Al, whatever. Who's the guy that coached for Miami for a little bit? Al Golden. I forgot that. Al Golden was rumored to be, he was supposed to be the head coach. He was actually from what one guy said, hired, but then a BOT member kiboshed it at the last minute. But anyways, like, you heard Greg Schiano, Al Golden, you heard Greg Roman, you heard other names. I never seen Bill O'Brien's name anywhere. And it's just funny, ironically, how it just seems like how this is going in the end. So, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I will get yelled at in the comments if I don't bring them up, because people do want to know. Terry Smith, any chance?
I doubt it. I wouldn't have a problem with him, but I really, really doubt it. From, unless this whole thing is just like a CIA plot but there would be no reason to do that. If they're going to hire Terry Smith, there's nothing to hide. They would just hire him. But I think from what I've gathered is Bob Chesney was above Terry Smith. Terry Smith just got an interview this past week. After their win versus Nebraska, he just got an interview. So, I get waiting to see how, what he was going to do, how he was going to pan out. But, just getting an interview now after a big win, that kind of forced Pat Kraft's hand. It just, and just from what people said, Chesney would be above Terry Smith anyways. So if there's any chance whoever this mystery candidate is, or if it's or if it was Kalen DeBoer or he was in the mix that they didn't pan out, I still think it would probably be Bob Chesney over Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah.
But it's just a crazy coach search. Crazy.
All right, last one I'll bring up, and then you don't even have to comment on this one because I don't think you probably even have any comments on it. But if you want to, you can feel free because I got to put the name out there just in case it happens.
No, let's go ahead, man.
Jon Gruden.
I don't know. I doubt it. Like I said, nothing would surprise me, but I doubt it. I mean, listen, some of the people that were bringing this up were like so many insiders that seemed like they knew. You would just hear them say, "Wow." Like, wow is all I could say, I mean, there was one guy who said, like, if you had a choice between the mystery candidate and Kalen DeBoer, who would you take? And the guy said the mystery candidate. That's interesting. And then you see that, like I said, the tweet that, it's crazy, man.
That doesn't scream Sonny Dykes, Jedd Fisch.
No, it's
Kenny Dillingham. To me, I mean, maybe Sark. You could say maybe Sark.
There's some people that were trying to guess Sark. Supposedly, there was this. You know how people have the flight trackers and try to track the flights, like in and out of state colleges. There was supposedly, and don't take anything of this. I don't know who it is. A flight from Austin, Texas, to State College that disappeared. I don't mean the flight disappeared, but like the flight tracker went down or something like that. Like it was erased from the flight tracker, so nobody could see it. So, I mean, listen, if it was Sark, would I be surprised? Yeah, but for the way this has been talked up, it's just supposed to like being this mystery candidate that really wows you. Another name I forgot to bring up that I threw out there that I just don't know if they're coming from the NFL rank that would make some sense is, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Kalen, who was the coach? He was with the Cardinals, Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh, yeah.
Cliff Kingsbury was reportedly interested in the job. I don't know if he interviewed, but his name was up there. It was never like mentioned a lot, but it was always there. Now, what's interesting about Cliff Kingsbury is Bobby Ingram is getting an interview. Bobby Ingram's not going to get the head coaching job, but Bobby Ingram, it was reported by Landon Tangwell. It came out a week ago or so that Bobby Ingram's getting an interview. Bobby Ingram, former great Penn State wide receiver, coaches now. Well, Bobby Ingram coaches for the Commanders. He's the wide receiver coach for the Commanders. Cliff Kingsbury is the offense coordinator. So, Cliff Kingsbury, Kalen DeBoer, Marcus Freeman, I doubt, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could argue former NFL head coach better than Kalen DeBoer. You could say that, but yeah. And he did spend time in college. I mean, he was at Texas Tech and everything. So
yeah, to me, it's all about recruiting too. It's like, as head coach in the NFL, you don't have to worry about recruiting. The GM does that for you and not recruits, but you know what I mean? It's just,
I know what you mean. So, all right. Well, there you go. Let us know who your mystery candidate is in the comments, and I probably won't give you anything special if you get it right, but you can screenshot it and tell everybody you got it right before anybody else. If you do that. So, Chris, you wanted to take some time to also look back at the James Franklin firing a little bit as well, with some shady stuff going on with him. I mentioned it a little bit in my video about James Franklin. Got a lot of good comments on that from people. Appreciate that, telling me I articulated the points well. Took some stuff from Langdon Tangwell and what he did. Took some stuff that Chris told me about, and then just a few things elsewhere as well. But you have seen some developments here for James Franklin after he's taken the Virginia Tech job that you want to bring up. So you have the floor, and then whatever tweets you want me to bring up, you just let me know and I'll bring them up.
Listen, so just like, I'm not trying to be a hater on James Franklin. I just call it like I see it. And when this guy, I supported him for a long time, but the past few years, I have a close friend that is very well connected with some big time people all over. And this guy and a few others have told me too many stories about James Franklin behind the scenes that he's just like a used car salesman. He's not this great man of integrity. he's a little shadier. That his character is not what everybody thinks it should be. Now, recruiting. If you want to bring the tweet, well, let me just say this. So, for people are wondering, Penn State lost all these 2026 recruits. Okay. Now, LSU, Florida, Auburn, they only lost like a few. They all fired their coach. They only lost a few recruits. Penn State, they might be up to 19, 20 decommitments and we're talking the 2026 class. Why is that? James Franklin, okay, he had the recruiting staff at Penn State while still working at Penn State. This is proven. They contacted recruits and told them all to decommit. Like, it wasn't just tampering. Like, this is some shady crap. And this is what I mean about James Franklin's character. One of his main recruiting guys, his name is Chris Mahan, actively working for Penn State, went and told all our 26 recruits to decommit. You look at the tweet. I don't know who the guy is, but he's basically calling Chris Mahan out for it because it was a slime ball thing. Now, the comments below, if you read it, no one here knows what they're talking about. My son was committed to Penn State. The NIL department, which is their recruiting guys, had all the commits reopen their recruitment and decommit. Okay. That is from Alex Haskell's father. That has been proven. Alex Haskell is a defensive tackle, which he was our top defensive tackle commit, St. Joe's Prep in Philadelphia. I mean, I really like the kid. Like he looks,
and that's a great school too. I mean, a lot of good talent coming from.
And we just got back in there. Penn State was on a drought with them for a while, and he actually recommitted to Syracuse. But what I'm saying is this, because there's still Franklin defenders out there on these message boards, and all they do is spin bullshit, trying to like play it off that it was no big deal or it didn't happen this way, or it was Pat Kraft like telling them to get out of their NIL deal or like letting them out of there. No, it was Franklin and his recruiting staff while still at Penn State actively working against Penn State. So there's that great man of character and integrity. He never was. Like, this is bullcrap. I mean, Auburn, LSU, Florida have a handful of decommitments, and we got like 19 or 20. So yes, I did want to mention that. And ironically, Chris Mahan, the guy, the slime ball that did this, all of a sudden now his Twitter account is private. It's closed. So, I mean, it was just more shady stuff about Franklin. Things I've heard the past couple of years, I'm not surprised at all, but just wanted to throw that out there. I said I was going to put him on blast tonight, and that's what I want. That's one of them right there.
Did you have the other tweet you wanted me to bring up?
You can show it. You can bring up the other tweet.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so it's
Tim Thomas.
Yeah, I don't know who. I think this is a Virginia Tech guy, but per sources, Penn State recruiting coordinator Chris Mahan is following James Franklin, Virginia Tech. Was already in contact with recruits this past week and helped host visits. But again, it wasn't just this past week. The guy, like when James Franklin's staff follows him where he goes. He's a loyal guy, and there's a lot of Franklin guys that are on his staff. Okay, obviously there's some new guys that come aboard at certain times. Like the guy's not a GM. He calls himself the GM. And Andy Frank, who he's been with Franklin, Vanderbilt. These guys are always been with Franklin. And when Franklin was fired, we're going on a month, over at least a month, right? And from the gate, when Franklin was fired, he had to wait till Franklin got hired, but they were actively telling recruits to decommit. They all knew Franklin was going to get a job somewhere else. They all knew they were going to follow him. Why not just wait till you get hired at Virginia Tech then? But this was in the works for a long time. So anyways, that's what I wanted to show about that.
Yep. I mean, at this point, I don't think there's any argument for people to say James Franklin shouldn't have been fired or anything like that. I outlined it pretty much completely in the one video. And then, I mean, it's college football. You're going to do whatever you can to stay ahead. but it was pretty obvious that, Franklin was never really making it about Penn State or anything like that, making it more about himself. And, that kind of fits everything that Todd McShay was saying about him as well. I don't know how
Yeah,
many people listen to the Todd McShay podcast, but
he didn't really endear himself to the community in State College from what people there say. He was just a shady guy, man. He came across now recruits and parents, they love him, and if you're with him, he's good, I guess. But, just a lot of with his character, just too many things, like I said, just way too many things. And then that was one of them. And, I could understand from people on the outside looking in that aren't like Penn State fans saying, "Oh, that's crazy to fire Franklin. He had all these great, these really good seasons, one bad year, and he just fired." There's more to it than that. We went over the NIL thing a million times. He did not want to spend big on NIL on recruiting. We didn't have great money, but we had money where we could have went out and bid. I was at all these NIL events, and they straight up told me they paid incoming freshmen like $50,000, $60,000. And like for certain ones that are really good, they'll go a little higher, like maybe $100,000. He didn't want to pay recruits. That was a contention point with Pat Kraft. He pushed Franklin to do this. Franklin said, "No, I want it my way." Pat Kraft pushed Franklin to hire a GM. "No, I don't need a GM." Why? Because Franklin wants to control everything. You hire a GM. Now a GM's in charge of that side of things, like, the NIL side. Franklin didn't want to do that because he's a micromanager, control freak. So Pat Kraft let him do everything his way. Everything he asked for, he got. He wanted all this money to hire Jim Knowles. He's getting a new, not this is part of Franklin, he's going to be having a new stadium, Penn State, or a renovated stadium, and it was just too much with the guy. He spent everything to bring back this 2025 class, or excuse me, this 25 roster for retention, and it imploded on him. Nobody wanted to spend all this money. Like, yeah, certain guys, key guys, but to spend all your money on this and not recruiting at all, to not go and, wanting them to go get bigger name guys in the portal. Kevin Concepcion, from my direct contact, was the first guy that Penn State really wanted as a receiver. Look what he's doing at Texas A&M. Too much money. Penn State's defensive tackles, they really struggled this year. They got pushed all over the place. Bear Alexander, now at Oregon, having a very good year. Strong kid, powerful kid, probably going to be in the NFL. Wanted to come to Penn State. Nope, too much money. David Blay, another defensive tackle, was a PA kid, played at Louisiana Tech, came to Penn State for a visit. Everything you would hear is, "Oh, not a good fit because he's talking about NIL." This is what I mean. They would spin it to trash the kid, so to sorts. If a kid was like, "Hey, I just want a market value NIL deal for what other schools are offering me," they would spin it that, "Oh, well, he's not a good fit, quote unquote, because he's asking for NIL." Well, that's okay. That's what you're supposed to do today. So for the people outside looking in, there's a lot more to this than just one bad season of why Franklin got fired.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, there is. All right. Well, Chris, thank you for coming in for our weekly head coach search update here on the Big Ten Huddle. I assume, as long as there's not a head coach hiring, we'll be back next Thursday.
I think we should know by then. I think we should know by then.
You think so?
I really do. Yeah, I know unless something happens, but everything was supposed to happen shortly after the end of the regular season. So like I said,
Monday, maybe Tuesday.
We'll see. It's crazy.
Yeah, might find out Monday, might find out Tuesday. We'll see. If we don't, we'll be back here Thursday. And even if we do, I'm sure I'll have Chris on at some point to talk about the hiring and everything else and all that good stuff. So thanks for listening and watching. Everybody like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Help us out here at the Big Ten Huddle, trying to hit 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And that's a huge milestone in YouTube, especially for a sports channel like this. So we appreciate anybody doing that, liking, subscribing, sharing the channel. So thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Have a good Thanksgiving, guys. Bye-bye.